This take and make kit is called Embossed Card. So what I did is I took a stencil that we had and I traced that with a pencil, and then I made a little bit of a card saying on the top. So this reads birds of a feather, and it's like a card to a friend. And then you can, I just took a piece of cardstock and I folded it in half, wrote something on the inside, folded it down. And the next step is to color it whatever colors you want. So I brought some brown, green, blue, and like a magenta color too. Once you've finished coloring, you can either use the glue nozzle itself or pour some glue out on a palette. Take a paintbrush and brush along the edges of where you want to put your embossing powder. And this powder is basically going to melt and give you a shine. So I think I want to outline the birds. So what you can do, and feather. So you'll follow this outline here with some glue. It doesn't have to be much glue, which is why I'm using the paintbrush instead. Okay. And then with feather, you could just highlight parts of the word, like give it a drop shadow if you want. And this project is a little messy, so you could either have like a paper towel underneath or next to you. Okay. So the next step, and we can go back and touch this up as needed, but the next step is basically to dump your bag of embossing powder where you want it to stick. So I'm going to start with feather. And then I'm going to go all over the birds. They have special embossing pens for this too, which are kind of sticky. But since I assume most people don't have an embossing kit ready with them, you can just use regular glue and that should work fine. You might have to use a bit more, a bit less glue. You'll really have to play with what seems right for the glue you're using, but you can just cover the entire picture. Because you want as much to stick on it as you can. Alright. And then prop your bag open and carefully pour it all, anything that doesn't stick, back into the bag. And you can reuse whatever doesn't stick. So you can curl your paper a little bit. This is probably the easiest way, and then funnel all of the stuff that doesn't stick back in. You could use another paintbrush to clean off the glitter, or you could just use your fingers, doesn't really matter. So any spots that you can see that you missed, you could either leave it as it is or go back. I'm gonna leave it as it is. So you will need next like a hair dryer, or I have a heat gun, which is what you usually use when you're doing embossing projects like these. And the heat gun is really phenomenal because it heats up the powder that's on here, and you can just push the rest of it off. It heats up the powder and it melts it right on your page, and then you get this embossed look, or this kind of gilded, since we're using gold, it'll look gilded. And I'm just cleaning it off with my fingers. This, like I said, you'll get some powder everywhere, but you don't want it to be where your design is not. So make sure you try and clean that up. And you could try and salvage the little pieces, but I'm telling you, it's not worth it. And you'll have plenty left over in case you want to fill in more stuff. Okay. Alright, so once you've gotten as much off as you can from the proper areas, you're going to use your heat gun. You're going to use it on each spot for a few seconds until you see that it turns a little bit of a wet look, and you will start seeing less of distinct dots. So your paper will wrinkle or crinkle up a little bit just because it's been exposed to heat, but you can put it under a heavy book once it's done. But you've got this really pretty gilded look now. If there are spots that you feel like are missing, see, so the E wasn't very, wasn't covered with glue enough, so you could just go over it with glue, and you could put a lot more on. And this E also wasn't very glued. You could just go over it. And then stop when you're happy. So I kind of like, I didn't expect the birds to end up this way, where they have like a little bit of glitter kind of everywhere. And it might be because of the marker. If the marker's a little bit wet, the embossing powder might stick to that. So you never know what your card is gonna look like, which is kind of the fun part. And you're gonna do the same thing. So you're gonna put the powder right over those spots you think you missed. Cover them completely, and then pour the excess back into the little bag. I would curl the paper, knock the rest that you can back in there, blow off any excess. Make sure your E actually still looks like an E, so if you want to be careful with that, you could use the back of a paintbrush or the front of one and just push the glitter back, and then hit it again with the heat gun. So there you have your very own embossed card. Now you can write your message and give it to someone special.